What, you have a podcast?
Really?
Computer, show the historical documents.
It's just time for a theocratic monarchy. King Trump, for life. Let's go.
I said, no, Sean, I'm going to be a dictator. I said that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Friday, May 3rd, 2024, first episode of the month for me. I love kids. I do. They bring home wonderful diseases. It's always fun, planning on doing a thing and then you can't. It's always good. But today, I want to talk about this fundamental misunderstanding within the Democratic Party. President Biden has this staple. It's been his thing since he started running in 2019. Excuse me. And it's this idea that not all Republicans are bad. It's just the MAGA ones. And I just don't believe that at all. Republicans are not your friends. I don't even believe currently that there is such a thing as a good Republican. All the good Republicans, if you wanted to say there used to be such a thing, they left. They're gone. Colin Powell, yeah, he quit, man. Before he died, he was an independent. A lot of the Republicans saw the writing on the wall way in advance, and they skedaddled. Anyone still calling themselves a Republican today does not actually believe they can change the party from the inside, and they're fighting the good fight. No, they've given in. They've given up. They are Republican. They're going to stay Republican because they still like what the Republicans are doing, and that includes Donald Trump. Okay, Mitt Romney is still voting along party lines currently in the Senate. Liz Cheney, darling of the left these days, voted for Trump's agenda 99% of the time. So did Adam Kinzinger. The Republicans, as a bloc, went along with blocking the military promotions with MAGA Senator Tommy Tuberville. Okay, they went along with it for a year almost. The Republicans right now are actively trying to impeach Biden over his son's dick pics. Now I'm going to get into, a little more here. David French, writer for the New York Times, loves this Supreme Court's decisions on religion and abortion, and thinks that when Democrats talk about reforming the court, they're delusional, they're crazy. No. This court's actually really moderate, you see, and it's good that we're using tax dollars to fund for religious schools and such here in the United States. That's a good thing. That's not something Afghanistan does or, one of those Middle Eastern countries we don't like. That's not something they do. No. But here in the United States, it's totally cool. And yeah, I can totally see that. He's going to do that. Biden doesn't want to talk about SCOTUS reform either. That's the crazy thing. This Supreme Court made precedent up, just invented it to keep Trump's name on the ballot because of Colorado. This Supreme Court is about to rule that the president is immune from any and all prosecution, despite the plain text of the Constitution clearly saying he is not a king. This Supreme Court is about to rule the Comstock Act of good old 1873 prevents whatever medication that a state doesn't like cannot be mailed to you. This Supreme Court is about to rule that Chevron deference no longer applies, effectively killing every single agency in the country and its ability to regulate pretty much anything. And I wish I could argue that the Democratic Party was doing any better. Senator Duckworth actively promotes the foreign aid bill as a fight against authoritarianism, despite money going to a pro-authoritarian regime in Benjamin Netanyahu. And the added TikTok ban here in the United States. And if you can't tell me that's not even just hinting at a little authoritarianism, a little bit of fascism, a little anti-First Amendment, that whole free speech thing that everybody seems to love. I'm not a huge fan of the damn thing, but I'll tell you, it's a little weird that everybody says they are, but then acts directly against it. Senator Fetterman is laying all the blame for anything and everything that happens in Israel on Hamas, as if Palestinians were not living under threat of death and oppression every single day of their lives prior to October 7th. All history began on October 7th. Israel never did anything wrong. And the Palestinians, they couldn't do anything right. That's Senator Fetterman right now. And then Darling, who everyone thought Biden should step aside and make way for, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, the liberal state of California, is helping police crack down on the protesters on college campuses. The LAPD is actively unmasking these protesters on camera, something no cop has ever done to a Proud Boy or white supremacist march ever. I have never seen the wonderful video of a cop unmasking a KKK member. Not on camera. No, that's never happened. And President Biden made very clear in his speech yesterday that he is not really pro-protest. Not really. He didn't mention their reasons, their causes, what they were even protesting to begin with. He's been 100% supportive of Israel's genocide of Gaza. Not once did he urge caution on college campuses and administrations. Hey there, nor the police being called in to disperse. He didn't say, hey, I understand the need to disperse these protesters. You should do so to respect their rights and try not to harm any of them. No, he didn't say any of that. And to be fair, this has been his position his whole life, right? He's done interviews about Vietnam War protests, and he said the same thing back then, pretty much. He saw the people taking over the buildings in colleges, and he'd walk past and be like, take a look at these assholes. That's almost a direct quote. Don't have it in front of me, but it's there. And the Democrats, they've got this all on this mistaken belief that Trump has poisoned the well of the middle. Okay, you've got these centrist, moderate Republicans, and they don't like Trump. Trump just offends them in every way. Even if they like his policies, they don't like him, the man, right? They hate him. And the Democrats believe that these voters are gettable for Biden and the Democrats, right? Like they can flip some red states. And I mentioned previously, if not the last episode, the one before that, that I think he's wasting his time and resources. He's actually trying to flip Florida. He is trying to flip red states. It's way bigger than just one state. I could understand one state, like, yeah, we're still going to focus on our blue states. Like, we're going to hit Wisconsin and Michigan. We're going to make sure those purple states are definitely covered. But, just to throw something in the mix, we're going to go after a really deep red state just to, maybe on the edges, on the periphery, and lay the groundwork for 20 years from now when that state could be gettable by, Democrats. A state like Texas, where demographically it's been shifting a certain way for a long time. This is even why a lot of people were excited about Beto. Down in Texas, they thought, oh, wow, maybe Texas is finally gettable. And it's really close. But he's not going there to I'm going to try to lay the groundwork, not for this election, but for the next. He's not doing that. He thinks he can win them right now. And it's weird because he's going to campaign in states that don't like him and are not going to vote for him. Just not going to. The Electoral College, unfortunately, decides elections for the president here in the United States. And it means the president, or whoever the hell is running for president, cannot waste time in states that just aren't going to vote for him. The only reason a Republican like Trump is ever going to go to California is because there is a fundraiser there from all the tech bro billionaires. He's going to go in, he's going to give a speech. They're all going to pay $2,000 a plate for whatever the fucking food they've got. And then he's going to leave. There's not going to be a rally in California. There's just not. Any outreach you see in a state like California or New York or Hawaii by a Republican is an unpaid volunteer who is just showing true initiative on their own. They want to move up the ladder in the party, and the only way they can do that is to make a name for themselves, and maybe by flipping a district that otherwise was seen as Democrat, or even, normally wins a Democrat 13%, maybe if I get it to 8%, I see a 5% bump. Wow, that person, that's a big deal. I'm not gonna lie. If you can change the outcome of a district by 5 points, yes, the party should pay attention to you and promote you and give you work elsewhere to see if you can carry on that trend. So that's the only time you're going to see a Republican in a presidential election. I know McCarthy's from there. There are Republican districts in California, but overall, no. Okay. But there has been no evidence that Republicans are willing to part ways with Trump to vote for Biden. And by evidence, I mean elections. I mean actual elections. I see polls all the time. There are a lot of people who said January 6th was a red line for them. A lot of them have already changed their minds on that. Okay? The media has done its job. You know, the right-wing media has done its job and protected them and said, no, actually, it was a peaceful march. And maybe it was the FBI or Antifa was there or whatever. And they muddied the waters enough. And then they made the January 6th thing. Oh, it's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. So reflexively, these idiots have come back and they've changed their minds on it. They're like, well, you know, I didn't like January 6th, but it's no longer the red line that it used to be. No presidential election has occurred since then. We really have no real, actual, will people vote based on this? There's no evidence on that. We have polling, which this far out is bullshit. I mean, it can be a bellwether. It can be an alarm. I do want presidents to do polls and pay attention to them, even if they are a snapshot of the moment, because it could change things. Like, I'm hoping that Biden sees his numbers fucking plummet here soon and changes course. And that could help his numbers come back up later. But we don't know. As far as January 6th is concerned, like, I'm sorry, there were Republicans who said that was a red line. I've already seen anecdotal evidence suggesting that a lot of them have changed their mind on that and they're willing to vote. So it really bothers me that, Democrats are doing this. The voters who voted Trump in 2016 and then came around to Biden in 2020, they were mostly Democrats before that, or new voters who'd never voted before. Like, they didn't vote in 2016. They saw the 4 years of Trump and were like, oh, fuck, I need to vote now. So they voted in 2020 for Biden. Okay, rather than build support with the Democratic base or focus on those unheard voters, those voters who never voted before, the guys who just showed up for 2020 because, good God, Trump was bad. And that is the largest voting bloc in America, are the people who don't vote. You know, these are people who, if you could motivate, could actually change things. Rather than focus on those people, Biden and the Democrats have decided to court this mysterious and unproven moderate Republican. This person just doesn't fucking exist on paper. Not yet. I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Trust me. I could be completely wrong. November, turns out, huge landslide. Biden wins easy. Trump's thrown out. MAGA's completely fucking destroyed. I hope. But as of right now, there is absolutely no evidence that a presidential election is about to be swayed. Democrats, despite offering zero plans on how to repair the damage done by the Dobbs decision, Biden is banking on abortion rights being the number one thing that will decide the next election. But again, no plans, no nothing. Despite the courts striking down one thing after another, and individual states inching just a little closer every day to jailing women, Biden is not offering any alternatives. He's not for reforming the courts. He doesn't want to talk about reforming the courts. Shuts you down immediately. Even holding hearings on the courts is not a preference for him, right? He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't call out the individual justices who were proven corrupt, like Thomas and Alito. Remember, his party controls the Senate. They have subpoena power. But to try and appease these good Republicans, the Democrats are not investigating Trump's family. They had the House and Senate for 2 years with zero investigations into the money laundering of that family. Kushner got $2 billion from the Saudi government. No one knows why. Zero investigations. Trump hotels were used to funnel him money from foreign governments while he was in office. No investigations. The January 6th committee, the one everybody wants to hang their hat on and say, oh, Kyle, you're crazy. They did a whole thing. I remember it. And yeah, sure, it was great. It was negotiated with Liz Cheney that she could co-head the committee as a Republican under the condition that the committee only went after Trump and not his enablers inside of Congress. Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Comer, etc. All of them had phone calls before, during, and after the insurrection with Donald Trump directly, and they all refused to testify or turn over their phones, and they were not forced to testify to appease Liz Cheney. Because it was all under the mistaken belief that as soon as Trump is taken out, As soon as he's gone, the Republican Party will return to normal. Cheney will once again be elevated to, I believe her previous position was number 3 in the House, number 3 Republican in the House. She had a name that was going somewhere in the Republican Party, that all would be forgiven, that she could come right back as soon as Trump's gone. And the Democrats believe it too. I do believe Biden believes it. Biden does. Even though Mitch McConnell broke every rule and norm in the Senate that the Senate has to achieve his agenda way before Trump ever fucking showed up. Okay? Like, Biden believes, oh, it's just Trump, and if you change Trump, it'll all go back. It'll all go back. I loved it. Reagan was a good guy, actually. After October 7th, over 20 Democrats went along with the Republicans in a bad faith censure of the only Palestinian American in Congress, Rashida Tlaib. Nancy Pelosi didn't speak up for her. Hakeem Jeffries did not speak up for her. The entire Democratic leadership pretty much sat that one out, with the one exception, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I don't really consider her leadership within the Democratic Party because she doesn't control shit. She gets the headlines because she's really good at social media and she's a very good speaker. She can get her point across. And of course, the right hates her, so everything she says does get magnified just because of that. But she doesn't affect any change within the party at all. I believe her and the squad will be relegated to backbencher status, pretty much the same way Bernie Sanders is, even though he's not, a Democrat. But now we get to the protests. And just like I said, all these never Trump Republicans, these people, these centrists that that you follow, that you love, or have been following because they were anti-Trump. They hated Trump. They don't sound very different from Republicans who love and sniff Trump's farts these days. CNN anchor S.E. Cupp says protesters support Hamas and are wasting their parents' money. David Froome equates the protesters with Hamas. Tom Nichols is dismissive of the protesters because their parents paid for college. And whether or not you agree with protesters, can we all agree that just dismissing them because you don't like them, because you think they're being entitled or whatever your beef, like, shut the fuck up. That's not a valid criticism. Okay? I get it. You don't like them camping out where the colleges say don't. You don't like them taking over buildings. You don't like them smashing windows. You don't like the violence or the loudness or whatever the fuck it is your problem is. I get that. That's a valid criticism. I don't agree with it, but whatever. That's you. You can get on that. I will not argue that. I would just say, well, if they were quiet and peaceful, like those marchers last Saturday in Charlottesville, the ones with the masks and the Nazi flags and the upside down American flags, all those white men walking down the street, they were quiet and didn't break any windows. Would you prefer their protest be like that? Nobody ever comes back at me with that one, though. Here's J.D. Vance on the issue. And MSNBC's Morning Joe co-anchor, the civil rights activist Reverend Al Sharpton, sharing bullshit reporting and speculation.
Anytime what you are protesting for becomes secondary to what you are doing, then you're really not protesting for it. And you, in many ways, dramatize what we did in Vieques, what I did later in other situations, was to bring attention to a cause, not become the cause. Right. And what is troubling me about a lot of this is they become the cause. It's about them. It is not about pushing the cause. They need to ask themselves if they were sincere. Right. Are you really focusing on what's going on in Gaza, about the children, about the women, about the innocent people, and in Israel? Are you focusing on whether or not you are violent or whether or not you can say the most incendiary statement? How are you guiding this? It's about them, and I think that they've lost the message. And I think that's because they've been infiltrated by people that are not there.
That is what I'm worried about.
I love how this ass clown is suggesting the protesters today are glory seeking, but that is something he totally never did. Ever. No, never. Al Sharpton's a clown. Whatever. I do have to point out that zero evidence has been provided that there are outside agitators of any of these fuckers. Like, the cops keep saying, we have evidence of it, including Eric Adams of New York City, the mayor. He said, yes, it's all outside agitators. We're going to get at them. And I'm like, The press has been asking, where's the evidence? Could you tell why do you think that? Why do you think that? It's just another way to demean it. It's like it's this weird Republican conservative idea that they can't understand why people act this way. So clearly, it's not them. It's the children that are wrong. It's that Simpsons meme, right? It's the same as like the TikTok thing. They want to ban TikTok. Why? Well, the TikTok's making them pro-Hamas. Okay, wait. Is it really? Or is it that, your actions and Israel's actions maybe lend some credence to what Hamas is saying? And I'm not pro-Hamas, I'm pro-Palestinian, but like, if everyone's like that, like I don't know, it just screams to me from like back in the 90s. It's like, it's the video games that are making kids, really aggressive and violent. It has nothing to do with all the guns in the house and everything. It's the kids and the music, the death metal and Marilyn Manson. It's his fault and all this bullshit. And here's your good old Senator Tom Cotton had this to say.
We're here to discuss the little Gazas that have risen up on campuses across America and the liberal college administrators and politicians who refuse to restore law and order and to protect other students. These little Gazas are disgusting cesspools of anti-Semitic hate, full of pro-Hamas sympathizers, fanatics, and freaks.
He really wants little Hamas to break through. And you may be asking yourself, why? And again, it's all stemming from this idea that maybe, just maybe, if they work really hard at it, these moderates, these centrists, will become Democrats. Long term, not just for this election, but for the future. But what I like to ask myself, and what I think you should ask yourself, what kind of Democrats would they be? Are they going to be like the old Strom Thurmond racist Democrats? The pro-fossil fuel Democrats like Joe Manchin? The Democratic Party is in the middle of actively reinventing itself. It truly believes that Trumpism is a minority of this country and all other voters are gettable, and they can't wait to get them. But here's what they don't see. Even if Biden wins this year, and I really am having a hard time seeing it, I don't think younger voters are going to like break for Trump. I think they're just not going to fucking show up. And I think there are a lot of people like that right now. And yeah, but even if he wins this year, even if Trump disappears for whatever reason, all of these fascist-loving moderates are going to go right back to the Republican Party. Tim Miller and all the rest from the Bulwark will all gladly swing back to the good old GOP. Why wouldn't they? Most of them are still pro-life. They don't want to reform the courts. Most believe capitalism and corporations will solve climate change on their own. They do. Most still love, big all capital letters love, Israel, and think American intervention in the Middle East is a net positive. They're not interested in peace or equality on the global stage. Most still advocate for American intervention across the globe, including against China. If Democrats took a page from Iceland and proposed a 60-40 bill. Now, the 60-40 bill in Iceland that has passed its law, it's working great for them. But it's a bill that basically says a board of directors in a corporation must be gender split with no gender being represented by less than 40% or more than 60%. So, 4 in 10 of your board members have to be women at a minimum, or men if you fly that way. If Democrats propose that, every single one of these never-Trumper people that you like, that you think are on your side, are going to become pro-Republican no matter who the fuck it is. If Democrats proposed a capital gains tax or proposed estate taxes again, where do you think these fuckers would go? If any Democrat proposes that the United States doesn't really need literally these hundreds of bases around the globe, and we should pare that back a little so that we can, maybe pay for healthcare or Social Security, do you think these fuckers are still voting for Biden in November? I notice even though these states are passing anti-transgender legislation pretty much almost every other day, the Democrats in Congress and the president are silent on the issue. Biden has authored 0 executive orders. Senator Majority Leader Schumer, not talking about it. You know what makes sense that Biden could do right now but won't because it will alienate every single pro-life Republican and all their friends? He could order right now military bases in all 50 states to offer women's services, like abortions. Military bases are federal land and are not subject to state laws. He could do that, but he's not. You know what also makes sense that Biden won't do so he won't offend, right? Condition aid to Israel. In that foreign aid package that he signed, there were conditions ordered of the Ukrainian government, and there's conditioned foreign aid for Taiwan against Chinese aggression, but there's no conditions for Israel. The whole point of these protests is that America is actively funding the death and destruction of the Palestinian people. Morning Joe cries about, oh, the protests were where were these protests where the Ukrainian civilians were being killed by the Russians? Well, fuck Joe, maybe because the government of the United States wasn't paying for it. We weren't helping Russia do that. In fact, we did the exact opposite. We gave money to the Ukrainians and we sanctioned the fuck out of Russia. We're taking their money from their banks and giving it to Ukrainians right now. Why the fuck would we protest what we're doing in Ukraine? Or what good would protesting Russia do? We're not helping them. We're actively fighting them. We could have a march for solidarity, which we have in the early days of this war. We had marches for solidarity, but there was no reason to, break shit over this. We weren't paying for it. And yet even now, today, you can go online, find current articles written by the liberals in this country, as well as the never-Trump centrists and the white moderates of America, all united behind one single idea. That if you don't vote for Joe Biden and all that he has done, that Trump will usher in the end of democracy as we know it. Now, I will vote blue in November. I've said that. I haven't changed my mind on it. But democracy as we know it? It fucking sucks.